Hello YouTube and welcome back to Angry Dave's Adult RC. This is your host, Angry Dave. Anyone under 13 needs to piss off and go watch something else. This is a show for adults. Here we have a pyramid of SCX24s. Some of you may have seen this picture recently on my Instagram. We have two of the dark grays and one of the lighter color. I don't know, I'm mildly colorblind, so I don't even know what the hell color that is. And then we have clear. I can definitely tell the color on that one is clear. So you may be asking, why the hell did you buy 3 SCX24s? Well, one short answer is it's a great fucking truck, and you know, you can always have a few extras for friends. The real answer is I do already have some 24 scale crawlers, but when Axial came out with this C10 body, you know, it's fucking beautiful, so I had to have one of those. That's what this one's for. These two down here, few people already know, these two trucks are going to be combined into one truck to make, as far as I can tell, the very first SCX24 6x6. That's right, this sick bastard is going to make an SCX24 6x6. And I have to send a special thank you shout out to Barbecue Altered RC for the idea. He spit it out in a chat one night and it just struck me as a fucking fantastic idea. So here we are with a pile of SCX24s on the table and we're ready to rock and roll. So let's get these things out of the boxes and start planning the build. Alright, we finally got them out of the boxes. We got 2 trucks ready to become one. We should have more than enough parts between the 2 of them to make this happen. So let's open up the bodies and take a look and see what it's going to take to make it happen. If anybody's wondering, that was 2 shots of Smirnoff 100 proof vodka, pre-made mudslide mix, and a little bit of shot of coconut cream flavored coffee creamer. Nice and strong and mighty yummy. Alright, so we got the bodies off and we got some disassembly done. You're going to end up with, from one truck, the skid plate, motor tranny assembly, and basically the entire rear suspension and drive. You want to leave that all assembled. And then the other truck, you're just going to take the body off, take the shock hoops off. This is going to slide into the frame rail in the back here. You have to shave off the 2 little alignment dowels on the side there. No big deal. They're not super important anyways. And we're going to eliminate the shock hoops. The shocks are going to screw right through the frame. We need to do that to raise up the rear suspension a little bit because the skid plate hangs down below the frame rails and it will interfere with the top of the rear differential. So by moving the shocks down to the frame, that gives you just enough room so that the suspension bottoms out completely before you have interference between those 2 parts. So we're going to get this on roughly there. The shock screw is going to go through the frame into, let me get a pointer here, into this existing hole. This hole right here, we're going to punch a new hole, or not, sorry, wrong hole. There's a hole hiding behind the shock here. There you go. You can see it right there. Once this is in there, we're going to run a drill bit through there to punch a new hole in the plastic so we can put a screw there. So that way we'll have 1, 2 holding it in to be secure. And then back here where this little silver mark is, we're going to punch a hole in the frame so that this screw can be removed and run through the frame rail. Otherwise it's going to interfere in the back. So then there'll be 3 screws on each side holding that into the chassis. It'll be nice and strong and really shouldn't have to do any fabrication work other than that to get this all to match up. We will have to make a pair of little tabs that are going to attach the 2 pieces of frame together, but those are going to be nice, straight, flat, simple pieces with just a few holes drilled into them so that we could nut and bolt the chassis together. And that should really be about it. After that, we'll get out some connectors and make up some Y cables so that we can plug both motors into the same port on the speed control, and then we'll make another set of Ys so that we can plug both batteries together into the same port. We don't want to put the batteries in series and double the voltage. We want to put them in parallel so that we have the same voltage but extra long run time. And this is going to be a 2-motor, 2-transmission, 2-battery, 6-wheel drive beast. So let's get some screws out and make this shit happen. All right, there we go, looking good. That worked out real nice. So there's the screw that goes through into the suspension. There's the one that we drilled a hole for, and there's the existing front hole that we remounted the shock to. It might be a little fuzzy, but I'm filming on a GoPro and there's nothing I can do about it. So yeah, there we go. There's the complete third axle and rear suspension all mounted to the chassis. Nothing real particularly difficult about it. I may have forgot to mention you got to turn the battery tray around, just unscrew it, turn it around, it screws back in. The only little issue, which I still have to correct, is this tab hits the motor and makes the tray flex a little bit. You could go ahead and cut that tab clean off. I don't know if that's necessary. I'm going to try to get inside the back edge here and shave it down and just remove a little material and see if I can get it to clear without cutting that tab off. That way, if you ever wanted to use it again, you still have that mounting boss that you can screw into and have it be supported and as strong as it's supposed to be. So the next thing we're going to do, I'll do that off camera because it ain't anything real interesting to watch. Then we're going to start working on making tabs and cutting the rear extensions off of this frame so that we can make the frame longer on this setup and get those rear shocks mounted. Alright, battery tray is good. Had to shave a little bit of plastic there and there just so it would fit between the rails, and shaved a little bit off of the bottom of that right there. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but kind of shave it off at an angle, and it ends up being pretty comfortable. Sits nice and flat. It's secure with just the 2 screws. It doesn't move around, so it's not going to let your battery flop or anything like that. So now it's time to get the frame extensions going on here. So with this chassis, as you can see, I already chopped it off. I took the body off of the frame, obviously, and then from the very end of the frame rail to the cut is 2 inches. That'll get you the maximum amount of straight rail that you're going to be able to get out of this. So if you look, it's not going to be quite long enough. Like, once I get this on here, it's kind of hard to see, but there is a gap that we'll have to cover. But we have to make a bracket or a whatever the hell you want to call it to tie the 2 pieces of frame together anyways, so we'll just make it a little bit extra long to make up for that gap. But definitely, well, with the way I'm doing it, because I'm going to modify these 2 bodies and make them into one, I want this to sit about here, and I'll adjust to make sure that the wheel wells line up so that I can graft the 2 bodies together after. So let's start digging through our scraps of aluminum and steel and see if we can find an appropriate piece to extend this frame. Okay, here are the frame extensions. Just a couple of pieces of sheet metal. They'll screw onto the frame. Oh, helps if I put the shit in camera. They'll screw onto the frame right about there, and then the back pieces of the frame. I cut off the other frame and mounted those pieces to the hinge, so once these are screwed on here, I'll be able to put this in place and kind of move it back and forth and get the body to line up so that rear wheel well is correct. Then I'll cut this bed off of this body and start working on grafting the 2 bodies together. Making these was pretty simple. You can do it in a vise with a hammer. You can do it with a hand seamer. If you have a bending brake, you can do it with a bending brake. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. It's very light gauge, probably 16 or 18 gauge sheet metal. You can get it at Home Depot and probably lots of other places. Or you can look around for things that are made out of sheet metal that are scrap and just rip pieces off, whatever. Doesn't matter how you get it, just as long as you get it. And then you could weld the frame together, but I want to do this with as little fabrication as possible so that people that don't have access to welders or don't have the fabrication skills will still be able to do this. So what you do is you make the overall piece of sheet metal 9 millimeters wide, and I forget, I think I'm around 2 inches long, 2 1/8. and then 5 millimeters wide. Yes, I'm mixing measurements. Too bad, get over it. These frame rails are 5 millimeters wide. If you were to take a caliper and check them like that, they're 5 millimeters wide. So 9 millimeters will allow you 2 millimeters on either side to fold over and make your C channel out of, and leaves you 5 millimeters in between so that it fits nicely on the existing frame. So what I'm going to do now is put this shit down. This screw right here, we're going to drill a hole right up in the front, right up in this neighborhood on both of them, magnetic tool, so that this screw can go through, and then we're also going to drill a hole to correspond with this one so I can have 2 bolts holding it so that it can't walk up and down. And then on the rear piece, we're going to use this hole and this hole, so we'll just screw corresponding holes to go into there. Once the pieces of frame are mounted here, we'll adjust and find out where the body's supposed to sit. Then we can mark the holes to drill these rears and drill them. There's really not a whole lot to it. You don't even have to do a whole lot of measuring. It can pretty much be done by eye. So get out the drill and punch some holes. Alright, we got our holes drilled, got the extensions mounted. I used the shock towers that I'm not using as nuts, basically. The rear holes, you will have to put the screw in from the inside out, because if you put these on the inside, they interfere with the suspension travel. So here we still got, we still got all our travel up and down, and we got the rails on there securely. So now we're going to take this body, kind of slide the rails in here. We'll get it set where we want it so that the rear wheel well lines up, make a mark on this chassis to where exactly it's supposed to sit. Then we can measure from that mark to, I don't have enough fucking hands. We can measure from the mark to these 2 holes so that we know where to transfer those marks onto here. Or if we don't want to do that much work, which now I think I might not want to, I'll use something like these little spring-loaded clamps to clamp everything in place. Then I can just reach through the inside of the rail with a marker and make a mark on the inside and then punch the hole that way. Do it however you want, doesn't matter, just as long as the holes end up where they're supposed to be. We're getting there. Alright, so when you flip this up, you can see I just clamped that together. Now we're ready to grab a marker, and we can reach through and mark that hole and that hole. And then once those are punched, all we got to do is measure to the other holes and drill. Hell yeah, we're making progress. We got painted frame rails. Cut up the extra battery tray to make sure we had something to screw through those holes too. And it's pretty strong. It's nice. Doesn't look like it's wobbly or weak or anything. We got the shock mounted through the back of this shock mount. And yeah, we got decent movement on the suspension. Everything's working nice. So now it's time to start working on how to make these 2 bits of body into one. All right, not going to get the whole truck in the shot just yet, but we got the motors wired together here and then extension cabled up to where they plug in. I got a little tether for the body. I'll get a little bit more into that after. The body came together pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it overall. So let's stick a battery in it, see if it works, try it out, and then we'll come back and do a little overview. Sweet, so there it is. As far as I can tell, the world's first SCX24 6x6. Extra thanks to Barbecue Altered RC for the awesome fucking idea. Second I heard it, I knew it had to be done. Let's take a quick look. So as you can see, we got headlights in the headlights. We had two sets of lights, so we got them rigged up, got them working. We stretched out the front springs to get the stance a little bit more even. We doubled up the two roll bars together, so we got forward and rear facing lights and a four bar roll bar. Let's get under the hood here. I made a tether system that requires two hands, so let me put this down real quick. Open this. Oh. Let's rip the light wire out real quick. Open it up, unplug the lights, turn off the truck. And right here on the side, I got an R-clip magnetized to the side of the frame. You just pick it up, stick it on the open body, and there we go, we got a tether. See, just got a little magnet right there. Just sticking, it's a steel frame, it sticks. Just stick a magnet there and leave it there, nice and easy. So we got, like we showed before, we got both motors wired together right here, and then a heavier cable coming up to the speed control to plug in. None of the wires got hot while we were running. The motors didn't get hot. They got a tiny little bit warm, but nothing crazy. ESC didn't get hot. There was no excessive heat really in anything. It seemed to work pretty good, and it crawled its ass off. That extra axle just does the trick. So aside from having to make the frame extensions and having to extend the wires and do a little bit of soldering to get everything hooked up, this was pretty much a bolt-on experience. We used the majority of parts were just from the two trucks. All the screws were from the two trucks. Everything we used to connect, you know, all the driveline parts, all that kind of shit, are pretty much just from the two trucks. So you just need a little bit of metal to make your frame extensions, whatever you're going to make them out of, and a little bit of wire. And I mean, you don't even have to be able to solder. You could probably use little butt connectors and be just fine. So there it is, the as far as I know, first and only SCX24 6x6. So if you like this truck and this build, go ahead and leave us a like, leave us a comment down below, share these videos with a friend, subscribe if you're not already so you can keep up with the weird RC stuff we're going to keep on doing, and we'll see you next time on Adult RC, where grown-up time is playtime.